Sorry, everybody. Hey, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films, and that was some footage from the National Archives. We've been handling some stuff from that collection, and that was some people recycling some glass. So I'm down in the basement at the archive, and not at at my house, because the archive's being worked on. And so one of the things I was going to tell you about is the fact that we moved a scanner here, and I have a webcam on my laptop that is movable. And yeah, let's see if we can make this work. Boo, boo, boo. Here we go. Okay. So, this is the laser graphics scanner. You can see that it says laser graphics there. And this is a 5K scanner. So it has a camera in this column right here that is 5K. We don't transfer it 5K. We transfer around 2 or 4K depending on what it is. Here's the gate. It captures both the visual information and the optical soundtrack, and then it converts it to audio. And that is why it doesn't do an audio output, which is why I can't use this to stream online. Over here's software. And this is a film that we got in a collection in early fall last year that we haven't really had a chance to go through. But I'm going to go ahead and start transferring it. And maybe we will watch it another day. This is rewinding back to set place. United World Films, which I think got acquired by Universal. You can see that it's rolling, and then you can see what it's doing is every time it determines that there's a sprocket hole, it flashes, and so it's capturing individual frames to the RAID array, which is in that computer. All right, there you go. That's how the sausage is made. Yeah, I thought I would just share that with you. Yeah, it's unfortunate I can't stream live. I have another scanner that does that, but we decided to bring this one to the basement because this one is for a job that we're doing for Duke University. All right, here we go. Here are some films that we scanned yesterday. This is First Alternative. Enjoy.
It could happen. Society runs on petroleum, and when you don't produce all you need, you run the risk of running out. America is dependent on foreign sources for nearly half of its petroleum needs. And that means the products of petroleum are tied to the politics of petroleum. Where can it lead? The story of America is the story of change. One of the biggest changes in America is the kind of vehicles Americans are turning to and the kind of people who are buying them. The pickup truck as a family car. A growing number of women buying sports cars. The increased sales of four-wheel drive vehicles. The van as everything. An increasing number of leisure vehicles sold to all segments of our society, old and young, male and female. Quite a change, and more. More cars per family. More women driving. More single people living alone and driving alone. This change in our lifestyle has already placed an enormously increased demand on an already strained gasoline supply. A supply that has to come from even more remote parts of the world over tenuous supply lines. There are alternatives. Some are expensive, some are unproved, and some too far in the future to help now. But the first alternative is to conserve what fuel we have now. That calls for another change, a change in our driving style. Atlantic Richfield is helping us change with the drive for conservation. The drive for conservation reaches thousands of American drivers through special caravans traveling the country. City to city, town to town, in shopping centers, malls, and parks, wherever drivers congregate. It is a program based on common sense, along with some practical rules for driving, all of it backed up by scientific evidence. But it's more than just a list of tips. It's an entire system of driving efficiency and proper vehicle maintenance. And for many drivers, it's a complete change in attitude. Using specially designed equipment, videotape, printed material, and most important, personal contact, these demonstrations invite the audience to share the experience of the drive for conservation. A commentator opens each demonstration.
The best way to save gasoline is to drive less. That's why we've heard so much about combining short trips. Combining those trips is a good habit. It really works.
Each caravan is self-contained and includes 2 cars and a van.
This car is mounted on a special dynamometer. We crank in drag for wind resistance, road resistance, and everything else. It's just like you're on a car, except you don't go up hills. That's the only difference.
The van is equipped with 2 video players. One videotape presents car maintenance tips. The other tape reinforces the driving tips being demonstrated at the site. A volunteer from the audience drives the car, which is on the dynamometer. Special gauges hooked up to the engine show the audience the car's miles per gallon. The driver gets instant feedback on good and bad driving habits from similar gauges inside the car. Any abrupt foot motion, acceleration, or braking decreases the miles per gallon. Witness the effect of this heavy acceleration followed by sharp braking. There are driving tips about tailgating. Lane change. Hill climbing, and even the proper way to approach a stop sign. drivers learn that by driving more efficiently and paying a little more attention to the car's mechanical condition, they can use up to 30% less gasoline. The Caravan teaches about that first alternative, conservation. Just how much air is enough air for my tires?
The lower air pressure in this tire, the more drag, the more resistance it has to the road. And this is what we don't want. We want to conserve, we want to take care of our cars, maintain them properly, and tire pressure is very, very important.
When does my car need new plugs? When do I add oil? How do I care for a PCP valve? Does my air filter affect gas mileage? Questions, answers. Some of what you hear is surprising. On a hot day, do you roll the windows down and turn off the air conditioner to save gas? Actually, windows up and air conditioner on is best on late model cars. To find out what audiences thought about conservation in general and each specific demonstration in particular, the Caravans use opinion-taking machines.
They have an opportunity to answer a lot of questions. Do they like, first of all, do they like the demonstration? Do they learn anything from the demonstration?
Oh, so it's an opinion of the demonstration.
The system works. The demonstrations are effective. People are pleased. They're discovering how to get up to 30% more for their gasoline dollar. The Caravans carry the message back and forth across the country. Portland, Las Vegas, Detroit, Los Angeles, Syracuse, Seattle, Cleveland, Harrisburg, Tampa, Indianapolis, Washington, D.C. Like all systems, this one depends on the people who use it. It works for those who understand the importance of the first alternative. It worked for Secretary of Energy Charles Duncan. He liked what he saw and said so.
You ought to do that. That's really, I think, you know, it's really impressive. You can see just what you do with just a light foot on the accelerator and what the difference is. It's fantastic. Get in there and do it.
Okay, I'd like to welcome all of you to the Drive for Conservation, and I'd also like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to introduce you to a driving system that can add as much as 30% to the mileage you're presently obtaining from your car. Now, I've got to emphasize, however, that to get this full 30% better gas mileage, you not only have to do it...
More than 100,000 people in over 50 cities and towns across 18 states have already learned how to save gasoline through a better system of driving. You can do it too. Visit the Drive for Conservation when it comes to your area. Or for more complete information, write to the Drive for Conservation, P.O. Box 30103, Los Angeles, California, 90030.
Arco. Yeah, that, so I pulled a bunch of films that didn't have titles, and so that was one of them. I didn't really know what it was, but there you go. And that's what I think it's exciting to be able to just, it's like, I don't know what this is. Let's put it on the scanner and see what it is. Let me stop this real quick. All right. Okay, so this next film is another example of this. And I know that some of the films that I got last year from Albuquerque were from a religious film company. So I think this is one of those. This is called Companionship. Enjoy.
Oh, hello. I was just looking at that photograph of my nephew, John. Cute little fellow, isn't he? He's a man now, in the Air Force. Doesn't seem long ago since he was crawling about the floor, unable to walk. If you set him on his 2 feet, he'd wobble like a jelly and then flop on the ground. He just couldn't stand alone. But it isn't only babies that have to learn how to stand alone. I was talking to a young friend of mine in our high street the other evening when some fellows called to him from across the road. I didn't know them, but my friend did. Without asking any questions, off he went. I didn't mind being left, but I was a little bit worried about my friend going off with the others so easily. Oh, it's fine to have friends, but it doesn't do to be always just one of the crowd. You've got to stand on your own feet sometimes, to use your own judgment. In the Air Force, they call it flying solo.
Hello, Padre.
Sorry if I interrupted your flight.
I just touched down, thanks.
Oh, what were you using for a rudder?
The fender. I've an idea I'm very close to my first solo. You know how it feels.
Yes, I remember well enough. Although it's many years ago now. You were scared?
No. Well, yes, I suppose I am. It's just the idea, you know. Being up there on my own. Entirely dependent on myself. Completely alone.
Hey! The kite is down. Mr. Dexter's waiting for you.
Aha, here we go. I wonder if it's today.
If it is, good luck.
Do a circuit just like the last. And remember this. If you are unhappy about your neck, anything at all, open up and go around again. All right, off you go.
Nice work, John. Jolly good landing.
Good show, John.
Thanks. My friend in the high street hadn't got to the solo flight stage, but he won't be much of a man until he does. It appears to me to be like this. From the time when as children we stop leaning on Dad or holding Mum's hand, we're like that pilot, getting ourselves fit for our solo flight, learning how to stand alone. I'm a Methodist parson. I started running errands for a city warehouse when I was 14. And after 10 years in that kind of job, I had 4 years in the army as a private. So I know a little bit of what it's like to live and work among different kinds of people, like the fellow in this story.
Have you ever been late?
And I don't intend to be.
You don't say.
Two bob each way, fair mate.
Yeah, see old Charlie is going to be late tomorrow morning.
Go on, how do you know?
See this?
Yeah, it's a clock card. How'd you get it? It's got old Charlie's name on it, too.
I know, I put that on. Listen, tonight they changed the cards in the rack. As I go out, I swap this for Charlie's. Tomorrow, Charlie clocks in on this, see?
Ah, I don't get it.
Look, I lose a quarter. Accommodates the purpose. Clocks in for myself and on Charlie's roll card as well. See it?
A bit risky, though, ain't it?
No, a piece of cake.
I know. The alarm didn't go off.
But I was here at 8 o'clock.
I'm sorry, Mr. Blake. We can only go by the cards. It's only quarter of an hour after all.
Well, that's not the point. It's my record.
I'm sorry, Mr. Blake.
Oh, Charlie, coming in late, eh? I wasn't half shocked.
Who told you?
A little bird. A weeny little bird.
So it was Harry Dermot. But how? And me never late. What a dirty, rotten trick. But he'll not get away with it. I'll get me own back. Suppose I told the manager he took bets. And I could. Write a letter. Capital letters. He'd get the sack for that. Oh, what's the sense? It wouldn't do neither of us any good. And he'd hate me for it. It wouldn't put my record right. No sense in hitting back.
Haven't you forgotten it yet? Can't you take a joke?
Not very funny, spoiling a man's record. How did you do it?
That's better, Charlie. You're a good sport. It was a rather dirty trick. How'd I do it? Well, you see, it was like this. I get told the car.
Anyone who stands up for what they believe to be right will often be laughed at, probably make enemies, and be told that it's a fool's game to go against the crowd. But is it? Oh, it's grand to have pals, to be with the gang, to do things together. But there comes a time when to do as nearly everyone else seems to be doing is to run away from the truth and the right. Once on earth, there lived one who gave to the world the truth of God, that is, the right, as against the wrong. I mean Jesus Christ. There are thousands of people all over the world today who are prepared to say, I stand for Jesus Christ. And if necessary, I'm prepared to stand alone. Dare you say that? Dare you?
Well, that was interesting. I didn't expect it to go down that path, but there you go. Let's see, what do we have set up here? I didn't. Let's see. All right. This next film. Actually, let me go ahead and so I'm going to show you this process while we're here, kind of, so you get a sense of how this works. So I threaded this film up, and so it's threaded up, and then I come over here, and why does that keep doing that? All right, there we go. Then I hit load film, and you see that it's going back and forth. It's doing tension, and if you remember, the other machine would lose tension often, and this is a much smarter about it. It's really kind of great. All right, what is this film? Oh, this is Ben Franklin. How about that? All right, so we're going to fast forward a little bit and see if we can get to some real skin and not a photo or an image. And we do this for color correction. Let's see if we can find something here. It's getting close. So the can said that this is Autumn is an adventure, but obviously that's not what this is. So what we're doing is we're trying to find something that has a decent real skin tone, and well, that'll work. And some decent, maybe some black, some white, and then what we do is we go to this. I don't know if I'm holding this right, but right here is a fine grade, and what it does is it tries to balance it. And so you see here is, where is it? Right here is a histogram, and this gives you a sense of how the image is balanced. I'll try another one. Let's see, nope. So we close, and we'll see, we'll try it here. Close. I'm going to adjust the red a little bit and kind of get it back a little bit. So it's not 100%, but this gets it in the ballpark, which is kind of what we want. So I think this is, the name of this film is Life of Benjamin Franklin. And then what we do is we can find a frame to start at, and we can set it as the start frame, and then we say run job, and it starts to rewind back to that frame. Now you notice that the title was clipped at it, which is why it didn't really have a proper intro title, but yeah, so it's pretty sophisticated in that regard. It also has this pretty great feature to where if it loses a splice, then you can make the splice, and then it will use frame comparisons to determine what let's see, turn this on, to determine where it broke. So that can be kind of handy too if you're in the midst of doing something. Okay, so anyways, where were we? Today is, so yesterday we showed Give Yourself the Green Light, which was a advertisement for GM for helping build road infrastructure by lobbying and by voting for measures for building roads, so that they could sell you more cars. This one is brought to us by the folks that offer us mortgages. So this is going to be an explanation about why banks and mortgages are so great for making America what is America. Hindsight is 20/20 with this, of course. We know that the pitfalls of mortgages that are given out when they shouldn't be given out, and that balloon, etc. So here we go. Road to Better Living. Enjoy.
Survey shows American people today better housed than any people in history. When I first read that on the release, I thought to myself, they call that news? Everyone knows that, even using the word in the broadest sense. We are housed in more comfortable homes and apartments. We buy in more efficient stores and shopping centers. We work in healthier offices and factories. We know all this. But how many people know how this amazing progress came about? Where does the money come from? Because of the millions, I mean billions of dollars it takes for this tremendous building program. In fact, it's impossible for the human mind to grasp the total amount of money that has been required to build the America we know today. Where then does all this money come from? Now we're getting to the point that is news. The point this survey makes. And to me, it's a fascinating story, one on which I have had reason to do some interesting research. It really started when the first settlers came to this country on their road to better living. Those sturdy forebears of ours were willing to endure the hardships of the early American wilderness for the sake of personal freedom. And one of the greatest rewards of that freedom was the opportunity to build their own homes and become owners of property, modest though it might be. In the next 100 years, settlements grew and flourished, and the folks who worked hard and were thrifty could build better homes and better farms. The settlements became towns and cities. Trade and commerce started. Artisans and merchants expanded their shops and stores. The spirit of the free world had taken root in North America, and the winning of American independence charted its future course. By the late 18th and early 19th century, average citizens, as here in Williamsburg, were beginning to have savings in excess of their immediate needs. This started them looking for the way to provide long-range protection for their dependents. To satisfy this need, life insurance companies were organized, and people began taking out policies. The funds accumulated from the premium payments were invested by these companies from the very first in such safe securities as mortgage loans on real estate. And mortgage loans have become a traditional form of investment for these institutions. At about the same time, savings banks were granted charters by the states, and the savings of individuals were not only safeguarded, but channeled into further community enterprises. The rest of the century witnessed unprecedented growth and expansion as American frontiers swept westward toward the Pacific. New towns and cities sprang up in the wake of transcontinental railroads, and across the land, new industries were born. Much of the expansion during this century was provided for by private capital, and many large individual fortunes and industrial empires were thus founded. But as time went on and the country kept on growing, individual fortunes were no longer adequate to finance the continued expansion. During these years, however, the insurance payments and savings accounts of millions of small savers piled up enormously. These funds of all these small savers are put to work for the American economy. Good for the small savers and good for the economy. The trustees of life insurance companies, savings banks, savings and loan associations, commercial banks, and pension funds must invest with a minimum of risk. Outstanding among such investments are mortgages, interest-bearing loans on homes, and other buildings. In 1934, the government cooperated with private business in creating FHA. FHA was born. Faced with a national need for more homes and a more consistent supply of mortgage money to build them, FHA came to the rescue by insuring long-term, low monthly payment mortgage loans. Home ownership was made possible for additional millions of families and stimulated a tremendous volume of construction. Now, most of the great saving and lending institutions were in the older parts of the country. Thus, insurance premiums and savings deposits tended to concentrate in the East. These institutions began to make mortgage loans in the areas from which the premiums came. As this practice grew, a new profession came into being. The profession of mortgage banking. You see how it grew naturally in response to the needs of the country. The mortgage banker is a specialist who obtains loans, large and small, for people in his own area from any number of local and national institutions. In doing this, he brings funds for construction into his hometown which would not be available locally. And after the mortgage is executed, he handles all the details for both the investor and borrower until the loan is paid off. It's quite obvious that these specialists, the mortgage bankers, play a leading part in the country's progress on the road to better living for us all. But what are mortgage bankers like? Well, about like any other hard-working businessman. Suppose we visit one, James Chandler. Let's follow this caller, Mr. Leonard Mercer of the Pasco Products Corporation, who was referred to Jim Chandler by a mortgage banker in the area of Pasco's home office.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
I'm Mr. Chandler's secretary. Won't you please?
Thank you. It's quite an attractive office you have here.
Thank you. Mr. Chandler's waiting for you.
Come in, Mr. Mercer. This your first visit here?
Yes, it is.
We hope it won't be your last.
Well, that may depend on you, Mr. Chandler. We're decentralizing our operations. We're going to build a new plant somewhere in this part of the country, and we're looking for a site. Your city is one of several under consideration, but before we decide, there are a number of problems to be resolved. Would you be interested in exploring these with us?
We certainly are interested. This would be a fine thing for the city. There are several properties here I think you'll find very suitable. Here's one. Over here's another. But there's one. Just so happens there's a shopping center going up right near that spot. That would be convenient for your people.
Yes, it would.
The railroad's already assured us that spur track can easily be extended to this area.
Well, that's the kind of information we need.
Suppose I take you to see George Christie, the industrial secretary of the Chamber of Commerce. He has all these facts at his fingertips, locations, freight rates, electric power, and so on.
Well, that would be fine. When can you arrange it?
Whenever you say.
The sooner the better.
Have you been in touch with the city council?
Not yet. That's another thing we'd like to be sure of, a cooperative local government.
You'll have no worry here. George Christie, please. After we've talked with the chamber, I'll take you to see the city manager and the commissioner of public works. Hello, George. Jim Chandler. Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Say, George, I have a gentleman I'd like to bring over to talk about locating a factory here. I thought you would. 11? Fine, we'll be there.
You don't waste much time.
Well...
But that's what we heard about you. Now, if our plans work out, I understand you're in a position to arrange the construction financing as well as the permanent mortgage loan.
Yes, we have good connections with our local banks for construction money. And when the building is completed, we can place a permanent mortgage with institutional investors.
Good. Now, there's one other aspect of this move that's important to us. It's housing. You see, we'll be bringing in a number of our people, and we have to have some assurance that homes will be available for them. How is the local housing situation?
Well, frankly, it's a little tight at the moment.
That's disappointing.
Oh, not necessarily. Let that be our problem. Well, we can start over there now if you want to.
Fine.
If you're coming in here, Mr. Mercer, and your people need housing, it's up to us to see that you get it. And we'll get it for you.
Mr. Chandler.
Yes, Henry.
On Frank Houston's home mortgage, we've arranged to defer his payment this month. He's out of the hospital now. He'll be back on the job soon.
Glad you took care of him. He's a good man, has a good record with us.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chandler.
Is that your usual practice?
Oh, yes, when there's a good reason. The lending institutions allow us reasonable discretion in cases of emergency. I'll see him tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
They recognize their responsibility to the borrowers in many ways. Let's go.
As the two men walk along the street, they come to some current construction being financed by Chandler and Company. A little farther along, they pass several substantial older buildings put up more than a quarter of a century ago when Jim's father, James H. Chandler Sr., was head of the firm. Chandler and Mercer pick up George Christie at the Chamber of Commerce and move on to the city manager's office. All agree that the city council will have to authorize the water company to extend the necessary mains. The city manager assures them this can be done, as well as anything else that will help the move. The meeting ends on a high note of enthusiasm. Jim Chandler is pleased, but he knows full well all the work that still will have to be done behind the scenes if this project is really to get off the ground. The next day finds him calling on Phil Regan, a local builder with a good reputation. Jim wants Regan to build a number of new houses on the old Whipple property.
All right, I'll try to have it for you by Thursday. Okay.
Phil, this is the kind of home we're looking for.
It's the best group of homes in that price class we've had yet. They'll go well on that Whipple track. But, Jim, I've got about all the work I can handle right now. I'd like to do it for you, Jim, but I just can't see my way clear.
This isn't for Jim Chandler or Phil Regan. This is for the city. A brand new industry, new employment, new business all along the line. Phil, no matter what other inducements we offer them, we can't bring them in here if we can't house them.
Doggone it, Jim Chandler, you're a hard man to turn down.
Well, it's the penalty of your business.
What do you mean?
You know a home builder builds more than homes. He builds communities, cities, lives.
I ought to know better than to let you in here. Every time I do, it's the same thing. Look, if I can arrange for the additional line of credit...
I'll get it for you.
Well, what are we waiting for? Let's draw up plans on these two models, send them in.
Now, I still like this one over here. Let's send all three.
All right, tell you what we'll do.
Now we are beginning to see something of what a mortgage banker really does. The full and active life he leads, much of it behind the scenes, for the betterment of the community. Of course, things like this are not accomplished overnight. For word on the Pasco factory, the next few weeks, Jim is busy on a wide variety of business projects for people big and little.
Here is the Simmons loan commitment for your signature.
Oh, yes. Well, this means a pretty little ranch house for those kids out on Clover Road.
I'm glad. They're such a nice young couple.
As nice as they come. 20 years ago, one of the first mortgages I made was for Jake Simmons, young Bill's dad. Bill was just a little tyke then. I remember I just bought a new car, and I let Bill sit in my lap as we steered it around the block. He's never forgotten it.
I see you haven't either. What is this civic committee you asked me to remind you about?
Oh, yes. The city manager asked some of us to serve on a community redevelopment committee. Write him a note and tell him I'll serve.
Yes, sir.
And then you'd better line up my appointments for my trip east next week. I'll want the complete file on the Sibley housing tract, the cooperative apartment, the Dewey warehouse, and the new medical center, of course.
Will you want the Pasco material?
No, I guess not. We haven't heard from them. That isn't like Mercer. We sent them everything they needed weeks ago, but, Oh, excuse me. Chandler speaking. Oh, put him on. Woman's intuition. Long distance, Mr. Mercer calling. Yes, sir. How are you?
I haven't called before, Jim, because I didn't have anything definite. Now I have. You've got a deal. The board has approved locating the plant in your town. We're ready to go as soon as you can set up the financing. You'll get the letter tomorrow. You have all the figures you need, don't you?
Oh, yes. It'll take a few days to work them into presentation form. Fact is, I'm going east next week. I'll submit it then. You bet. I'll be in touch with you, Leonard. Oh, same to you. Bye. Okay, I'll take that Pasco material.
Yes, sir.
So Jim Chandler heads east with several loans to discuss with a number of lending institutions with whom he constantly transacts business. One of them is a life insurance company, where he is welcomed by Ed Stevens, Vice President in charge of mortgage loans.
It's nice to be back here again. Well, what have you brought us this time, Jim? We know you've always got something interesting whenever you come to see us.
Well, I've got several things here, Ed. One of them a new plant loan I believe you'll like.
Oh, you got a couple of our industrial loan men in here. Send in Wilson and Tuttle, please.
The specialists come in and for the next several hours study the facts, figures, and exhibits Jim has presented. They ask him direct, penetrating questions, to which he gives his answers in the same direct, informed manner.
Well, Jim, I think that does it. You've certainly brought us something concrete to take to our loan committee. Thanks a lot, gentlemen.
Have it all ready for you in the morning.
I'm sure we'll have our answer for you in a hurry. In addition to the facts and figures about this new factory proposition, I was glad to get the side information you're always able to give us on conditions generally in your part of the country. You know, without fellows like you, we'd have a much tougher job investing our funds.
Well, I'm always glad to help.
I mean it. You know more about conditions down there than we could learn in years. That's why we rely on your judgment. Come here. Take a look at some of the projects we're working on with other mortgage bankers from all over the country.
Oh, I'd like to. I'm always interested in new ideas.
As Jim Chandler studies the fascinating exhibits, the latest ways for making life happier for so many, he secretly thrills again to being a part of this important business with men like Ed Stevens and his associates who feel their solemn responsibility, both to the policyholders and to those who benefit from the mortgage loans. It is a business, yes, but a business guided by the highest ideals.
In one community, where the need for moderate price housing was critical, our mortgage correspondent came up with this wonderful development to take care of several hundred families of moderate means. As you can see, it's a lot more than just a roof over their heads. Look at that setup. Isn't that a knockout? And here's a beauty. A garden apartment unit in another community. And here's something I like. A group of private homes planned for a southern location. The emphasis, you can see, is on individuality. Yet the basic architectural style is admirably adapted to the climate. I think you'll be interested in this one, too. A truly modern office building where the people can really work efficiently in comfort. It's this diversity of projects, Jim, that helps us all diversify our investments, and I don't need to tell you how important that is. That's why you mortgage bankers are the most versatile source of mortgage loans, because you're the makers of all types of mortgages, like the factory you brought in today. Here's another plant we furnished the money for not so long ago. We liked it because it provides about every feature possible for the well-being of the people who work there, including a fully equipped medical department, for example. I'll be on the road in the next few weeks inspecting most of these projects.
When are you coming out our way again?
Oh, I'll be out there first week in September.
Fine. I want to show you how our operation has grown since you saw it last. And the town, too. It's really moving ahead with the times.
I look forward to it, Jim.
Be seeing you, Ed.
Right.
Soon after Labor Day, Ed Stevens arrives in Chandler's hometown. Jim shows Ed around his office. Ed is keenly interested in the mortgage banker's various departments on the office floor where all aspects of servicing are handled.
Oh, Ed, you know this town has some really outstanding real estate people. You see over there? Yeah? The older man with the young couple? That's Gene Guthrie, a local realtor. He and Henry Sherman have worked together before. You can always tell, can't you? A town with good real estate people is a more substantial community because more people own their own homes.
That's right.
Now, this is the way your payments will work out. The first year, this proportionate share applies on principal, while this part covers interest, taxes, insurance, and so on. Now, through the months and years, your interest payments become less and less, while the part on principal becomes more and more, until by the 20th year, your payments are practically all principal.
Now I understand it.
That's a good way of showing it.
Oh, Mr. Chandler.
Oh, excuse me a minute, Ed.
Surely.
Folks, this is Mr. Chandler. This is Mr. and Mrs. Russell. We've just closed a home loan for them.
Oh, good.
You know Mr. Guthrie, of course.
Oh, yes, of course. How are you, Gene?
Hello, Jim.
I hope Mr. Sherman is taking good care of you.
He sure is.
This is a dream come true for us, owning our own home so soon. Thanks to Mr. Guthrie. He told us about this low-payment mortgage.
Well, you're in good hands when a realtor like Mr. Guthrie is looking after your interests. He's shown a lot of people how to realize this particular dream. Glad to have met you. If you should ever need me for anything, I'll be around here.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Gene.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, we're glad to have mortgage bankers like you represent us as our loan correspondents. It's more efficient and less expensive. You're doing a job here we couldn't begin to do from our home office. Well, Ed, I figure we all need each other. The Russells need us, and we need the Russells. We need you, and you need us. Gene Guthrie needs all of us, and we all need men like Gene Guthrie. You know, Jim, as my little niece said to me the other night, Uncle, you said an armload. Seriously, though, this money, the savings of all these people, when put to work in this way, well, it benefits everybody. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Every wage earner, every merchant. That's the reason I like this work. I know what you mean, Ed, and I'll go along with that. But now, if we're going to inspect those new properties, we better get going. Okay. I'll just pick up my things in the office here.
The two men visit several projects in progress. The new Pasco plant, an impressive example of the healthy employment of private capital. The savings of thousands of average citizens. But beyond even that, here is one insurance company, like many others, investing more funds in an area than it receives from the area in premium income. Jim takes Ed around to see the new houses Phil Regan is building with Jim's financing. The insurance company has no financial interest in this part of the project, but Ed Stevens always likes to see what mortgage bankers are doing. Jim is financing the mortgages on these houses. Later, he will transfer the individual mortgages to one of the savings banks or insurance companies he represents. These institutions welcome the opportunity to spread their investments in government-insured mortgages. And the ripples of prosperity, like those from a pebble dropped in the water, reach out farther and farther to benefit more and more people, every trade, profession, and business in the community. So there you are. That's what I meant when I was trying to tell you what mortgage bankers are like, what they do. We've come a long way from the housing of our founding fathers. But the progress we have made in this country traces back directly to the ideals and aspirations to which they were dedicated. All of us who have savings accounts and life insurance play a part in today's great building program. And we can take everlasting pride in the knowledge that together with men like Jim Chandler, we are steadily building our own road to better living, now and for the future.
So, yeah, that's great. That's great if you're not poor. Or if a banker doesn't think that because of your race, you will be able to, that you're a safe investment. Yeah, but there you go. That's how great they are. Let's see. We'll take a look over here. So we're scanning. This is that Ben Franklin film that we're scanning, and there were 2 splices which were very frustrating, and then it just stopped. All right, so I go over here and I hit the scan is complete, and then what you'll see, it says processing audio. So what it's doing is it captured the optical soundtrack and is running it through a GPU, which is a graphics process unit, and it's creating an audio soundtrack. And the reason it does that is because if you use an optical soundtrack on this scanner, it might not, it might be have that wow and flutter. And we have certainly played films on here that were done on a laser graphics that had just a regular optical soundtrack, and it has that because the motor inconsistency was just, it was just not quite one consistent speed, then you can hear that sound. So the way that they got around that, and to make it cheaper, is to say, well, we'll just capture the optical soundtrack, and then we will process it with a computer, and it actually is better, sounds better. Some people think that the optical, the fidelity of it is not as good, but to be honest, the fidelity of 16 millimeter is kind of garbage. It's not really good to begin with, because it's basically this little tiny waveform, and then it gets printed, then it fades, then it gets scratched. So the range it's like, what was it, like, it's 100 to 6,000 megahertz, I think is the range, or 6,000 kilohertz. I can't remember, but the times that I've gone in with audio software to kind of tweak it, I've noticed that the range is kind of narrow, and there's a lot of hiss and a lot of noise on the other end, just caused by general noise. Wow, I geeked out, didn't I? So that's all we have for today, but I will be back tomorrow virtually to show you some films for Thanksgiving. Maybe one or two I've shown before, but there's some new stuff in here that we haven't shown, and I'm excited to show you that. But if you're not here, if you are celebrating Thanksgiving by not being on a screen, or by being with your family, or if you're traveling or whatever, I just wanted to say thank you to you. You have made the last 4 years incredibly tolerable, and have turned what was going on during COVID, a horrible thing, into a very positive, wonderful thing. And I feel like we have a little family here. So thank you for that. I really appreciate. I've met some of you in person, or some of you I know, but it's great to see your faces via your comments. And it's also great that you've helped us support us, both with kind words, but also with financial contributions, or by hitting the thumbs up button or the like button. All those things are great ways to support us, and I just want you to know that we appreciate that. That if we were doing the show in a vacuum, where I wasn't getting any feedback, it would be really hard to figure out, what am I doing? Like, is anybody watching this? I have no sense. And so thank you so much. Maybe I will get to see all of you in person. I'm going to say this, I am going to be in Milwaukee all next week for a conference, and I will probably try to interview some people at the conference for the show. But also, I'm doing a show on Wednesday, I think at 8 o'clock at the Avalon Theater. I'm showing the Nightmares of the Clown show, which some of you love. I've seen in person. But yeah, that's what's coming up next week. So I'll be remote, and I'll probably be recording most of my shows because I'll be all over the place doing stuff. But I will try to get some new faces. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow. Yeah, I hope that you have a restful, peaceful day, and that you are grateful for who you are and where you are. It might not be the best place you've ever been, but it could be a lot worse. So, love you guys very much, and we will see you soon. Take care.